All right. Good to see everybody for another uh, Cute for Teams here. Champions using teams effectively, meeting monthly. If you are new, this is a office hours, ask me anything. Essentially, it's a place to come and, talk and bring your questions. You are able to come off mute. You're able to use the chat. Feel free to do that. Um, Otherwise, I'll just talk about things myself. Yeah, so glad to see you. And I will be checking the chat to see if you guys have any questions, come off mute, all of that. But since we last met, I always just try to pull from the stuff that I'm seeing on a regular basis, day to day. And I actually had something come across my desk, one of my feeds or whatever. Let's see here. An article posted on LinkedIn, Tex, Techetics Corp, I guess. But I thought it was interesting. It was mastering teams. This is as of last week, I guess. Tips to boost productivity and collaboration. And in this audience, you guys are all teams enthusiasts, as I am. But it was nice to see this kind of put out there. A lot of tips and tricks that probably you know, folks that are, join this session often, are aware of. But I thought it'd be worth kind of going through because it kind of made me, remember what are those key best practices when using teams um, um, that, really help with collaboration, whether it's in meetings or whether it's outside of meetings, right? So thought I'd go through these, and if any of these resonate with you, let me know. Or if any of these don't, I guess even more importantly, if any of these don't resonate with you, I'd love to hear that. I'd love to talk about that. If one of these tips is something that you just do not do, and maybe have a good reason for it, that would be interesting. Just check my chat here real quickly. Da-da-da-da. I think I am still in presenter mode. Yep. Am I? Yeah. Okay. I'm good there. And just checking chat. All right. Okay. Awesome. Thank you for in the chat for confirming the view. So all looks well. Awesome. So I was just going to go through these here. So a couple things, first, this one's kind of relevant, organized with teams and channels. Relevant because I believe it was the last time we got together, we talked about the new chats and channels experience in Teams, where all your chats and your teams and channels are in one UI. And so, part of the reasoning behind that is to ease the pain of switching between the two per se. Pain may be a strong word, but so this first tip here about organizing with teams and channels. Um, I certainly have a lot of group chats that I'm in, and they're using a group chat because they're not really a fan of the teams and channels. So for many, this might be one of the tips where you say, nope, not interested, right? So they're saying create a team for each department, project, or client for focused discussions. Use channels to organize your conversations, and use private channels for sensitive discussions. Um, if you're fully a group chat type person, then that is one of your current challenges, is the different conversations you will have in that chat. I mean, it's one stream of thought, and so there's not a good way to have an organized, conversation, or amongst the stream of thought, right? Um, Thankfully for group chats, there's that reply feature so that people can reply to it directly to an actual message. That helps, but other than that there is a challenge there. Um, so in the chat, uh, in that org, you got that 7-day retention on channels. So I can see that moving over to group chats where you would like to retain the conversation longer. That does make sense. Yep. Yep. Certain retention policies could certainly dictate your behavior there. And then private channels, and I don't see that much. I don't know if you guys use that often. Because certainly if there's a sensitive discussion, one could just make a new team. So there's got to be some additional reasons to have a team that is mostly open, but then some private. And I would say too, hopefully there's good reasons because there's some extra kind of governance now that you've got that private channel. So I see in the chat, at least one person is using that a lot. But yeah, I don't see that often in my world. The private channels per se. Um, so yeah, but as they point out, it is for sensitive discussions, especially if there's leaders in a broader meeting or broader team that may need to discuss leader related stuff, and they can do that in that same team. I am interested in now that we're in this era going forward of this unified chat and channel piece, if that changes behavior here. That'll be interesting to see. Um, yeah. So interesting stuff there. So the other one is leveraging tabs for quick access. So they're speaking specifically in a channel. We do know there are tabs in a group chat, but not quite as many options in a group chat. So that is one thing you potentially miss out on if you are a heavy group chat person or maybe anti-channel. You are missing out on a full experience with those tabs. There are some tabs and apps that are only for the channels. So they mentioned a few like Planner and Trello and the website tab and things like that. But they're also pointing out here tabs being, one for apps and tools like that, right? And files, of course. And so most people you get that, but a lot of people, I think, miss out on using tabs for quick access. Just a standard Word doc or Excel file as a tab, because you want that team to be able to hit it quickly, even if your file structure is well organized and it's easy to go on the files and find that tab. It's still like 1 click versus 3 clicks or whatever it may be. So using tabs for quick access of something is another good piece as well. So I like that. So frequently used documents, things like that, to make them accessible. I've certainly been in plenty of channels that don't use tabs at all as well. So I could see this being a good tip, because it's kind of like folks that have teams but never make new channels other than the initial one. And then folks who are in teams and only talk in the chat and the files and never add a tab. Probably are currently in something like a team like that today. So yeah, like in the chat, we don't want to go overboard with the tabs, but we do want to use them when appropriate. So, good stuff there. So streamlining meetings with built-in tools. So they call out Together Mode as one, and they actually call it an immersive virtual space, which is interesting to call it that because we actually do now have immersive spaces, which is separate from Together Mode. We're actually going into a virtual environment, whether with a VR, headset or just 2D, and that's gotten some updates lately. So I haven't used Together Mode in a while, and I have done immersive mode a little while back. If I had my choice these days, I would probably choose the immersive mode. I know that's still catching on. But it is a pretty cool experience. I guess you got to be a person that's into. I am very much into the VR experiences, so that works for me. So yeah, so I could have seen them add Together Mode plus immersive spaces in that particular bullet. Live captions. is a very good tip. I keep my live captions on all the time these days, um, because whether it's accents, or maybe not being able to hear someone clearly, the teams can seems to pick up their words a lot better sometimes than my ears do. And so having that on, if I miss something, I can look at the live chat to see what they just said. So I like that, and there is a setting to make it come on every time you start up a meeting. Again, live captions are just for you, and you could change the language and things like that, depending on. So someone could be talking Spanish, but I'm seeing my captions in English and all that good stuff. Speaking of that, hopefully you guys saw the announcement about the upcoming feature. Talking about translation here, the AI powered, real time translation, which we have that today, where I can read the translation in my captions, but AI actually creating a voice. Someone speaking in Spanish, I hear the voice as they talk real time in English. Pretty cool. If you haven't seen that video demo, that's worth watching. So that's the coming soon kind of feature. But anyway, live captions for streamlining meetings, recording meetings. Certainly, if we want to take advantage of Copilot features, we want to record them or at least transcribe them. I always say that too. Sometimes people get pushback when they hear the word record, but sometimes you say, can we transcribe this meeting? Maybe not so much pushback, because now I don't have to worry about my face being on camera. We're just transcribing the word. Sometimes that gets less pushback. So that's something to try if you're trying to get meetings recorded more especially for the sake of recap. Start saying, can I transcribe this meeting versus record, if you get pushback on recordings. So recording them so people can catch up that can't make it, and then using polls in meetings, especially if there is a decision to be made. But also polls are just, I find them to be refreshing when I see them in a meeting. We're just so used to staring at all those squares, and so to get something that makes you engage and interact is kind of cool. So I like that number 3 there. Automating processes with Power Automate, basically for the sake of automatic notifications and creating alerts and things. I'm curious. So receiving alerts in Teams channels, or basically receiving alerts in Teams in general. I'm wondering if that works out well for you all. I mean, there are so many places for us to get alerts from, and I'm kind of wondering what, folks' preference is. Some of us maybe like to just send an alert in my inbox along with everything else. Some like to see it in their feed. I'm one that I'm actually okay with alerts from like all of my apps. It kind of feels like it's an assistant that's telling me what's going on, and I know how to ignore an alert if I need to, or or mute something. So I appreciate alerts in Teams and Outlook, and my to-do reminding me about things. So, but not everybody's into Teams alerts. I see in the chat using alerts for a SharePoint list. And in fact, they mentioned this here too, but I think you're referring to kind of the standard SharePoint alerts. They're actually saying use Power Automate to send those right to Teams, and that might be what you mean as well. But you could get alerts from your SharePoint list in your email, but then also get them in Teams as well. Yeah, awesome. And then collaboration with file integration makes sense. They mentioned version history. I suspect this audience all knows that all our documents have that, whether that is in I'm not opening up too many things, whether that is, I just had a library, yeah, whether that's here in work in the browser, or you can do it actually from the app itself. I could open this up in Word and see it there too. So these are cool. I, in fact, just use version history this week because collaborating on a PowerPoint with two other people, and somehow, some way, my edits didn't make it as they were working in a separate session. I had to go back a few versions to get my stuff, so I appreciated version history for that. Let's go. Where was I? Yeah. So, and then of course, you got the version history that's just on by default, but then of course you can get some formal version history if you really want to do check in and check out. I don't know if we've ever talked about that, but good old fashioned SharePoint check in, check outs can make more formal versions. Link your team's channels to specific SharePoint libraries for centralized document management. Yep. Or even link them in the files tab as well. So yes, you all know I'm a big SharePoint fan, so I'm a big fan of file collaboration and file collaboration in Teams as well. So I like number 5. Shortcuts. I don't know if you could raise hands or a thumbs up or something if there are shortcut people out there. I'm not for Teams. I mean, I've got some shortcuts that I do all the time, like screenshots and locking my PC and things like that. But I'm not a big shortcut fan in Teams. Every now and then I'll do the control N for a new chat. But again, usually these shortcuts need me to have Teams, my active window, and I got so many windows going on. I think that's why I never memorized them, because I just assume I won't be on Teams as the active window when I'm ready to use it. But if there was one I use, it'd be Control N. I don't know what you guys' favorite ones are. I don't do any of the other ones they're mentioning there. So in the chat, doesn't look like one person doesn't use them much. Shortcuts in general, Teams not as much. Yep. So I think we're all kindred spirits on the shortcut piece here, but we're probably missing out on some it being a little more of a power user, because there are certainly way more shortcuts than this, and so there's something in there we probably could utilize. But yeah, I'm not a big one on that one. Focus with notifications and quiet hours. This is an important one for many of us right here in the U.S. who are likely eyeing our upcoming vacation time. In fact, you may be barely paying attention to me now because your brain is already trying to get in that mode and has checked out. But when you do, I do recommend setting up the quiet hours, quiet days on Teams, on your mobile as well, to just keep those things from coming. I mean, you can set it up such that you don't get anything, right? And that I would encourage that for those non-working hours, and especially for the long vacations. Also, for channels, as they're pointing out, being able to in our channels, to set up the notifications there in terms of how we want a channel to talk to us, right? Most times I'm happy to do a show and feed for almost anything, because a feed it's not very intrusive. Banner, though, I'm a little selective on. That's going to actually pop up in my front of my face. But I'm usually happy to do a feed, and then there's got to be some team that I just know I'm not going to be checking regularly for me to turn it off completely. So. Yeah, so I agree with that for number 7. Employee engagement with Viva. So yeah, depending on how your org does, more of these wide collaborations, you might be doing engagement in the Teams area, but again, as engagement gets more broad, cross team, that's where Viva, Engage starts to come into play. Viva Insights for personal tracking of, what you're doing, and Viva Learning to share learning content. So, yep, that's a good one. What was announced, I think, recently too, is that integration of storylines and Viva Engage, kind of like your own personal blog. It's probably a better way to describe that, but that's another thing to encourage as well. And then securing your team's environment, important. MFA, and again, this might not be your as an end user, your decision, but as an organization, setting up MFA, setting up conditional access policies are good. Regularly reviewing guest access and permissions can be an end user responsibility. Regularly looking at your team to say, are the members in this team still all relevant, or does somebody need to be removed? You have groups where someone's left the company or someone's left the team. Again, it's almost kind of that zero trust, minimal minimal permissions kind of thing. If they're off the team, do they need to still have access to the team, or should they be removed? So that's something you should just review. It may be that they can stay, but that's a decision you should make through review. And then staying up to date with Teams features, keeping an eye on the roadmap to take advantage of new features and things like that. I will say this is has changed recently. Teams now kind of more does that itself. Back in the day, which back in the day is like 6 months ago or so, but it was more like a on-demand, get the updates, and now I think it happens a lot more fluidly. I actually think it feels like Teams is actually checking for updates every time I open it brand new, which is nice. Then I can also go settings, about, and you can see it checking there now. It tells me I got the latest there. So I don't know if you noticed that it thought about it for a while and then told me I have to do. So staying up to date with Teams features is good, and checking the roadmap. Control, in the chat it says control period to see all team shortcuts. Okay, right when you're in. So let's try it. Control period. Yep. So there's all the shortcuts. So there's lots of them, lots more than we just talked about. And I bet there's something in here that we all should be using. That's a lot. That's good stuff. And you mentioned control period for the shortcuts. I'm also a fan of star period. When I am in a chat, let's go to a new chat. Star period, if I click that now, gives me my emojis. That's a Windows based one. I can also get emojis with Teams, the Teams button. You might notice they are slightly different though. And this will appear anywhere in your use of Windows apps, right? Any text box, your Outlook message, things like that. So Windows period versus control period. So yeah, even though we all profess to not be shortcut people, we got a new shortcut you just learned. So hopefully you can use that. All right. So they had nice little 10 tips for productivity and collaboration. I thought it was a pretty good list. I don't know if there was an 11th one you would add. It'd be interesting to hear, but I think they covered that pretty well. They didn't mention Copilot, but I guess that this is a Teams list, even though Copilot is integrated into Teams. I guess I get that. So good stuff there. All right. Well, again, I just thought that would be a useful little discussion to kind of go through and just kind of give us a little refresher on some of the tips we use. Again, I suspect this audience is probably doing all those things already, but maybe one of those was something new for you or something to think about. So, um, yeah, I'll put the link as I see that in the chat. I'll put the link to that article in our chat. Control C and Control V. See, here I go with my shortcuts again. Control C, Control V. There you go. Got that in the chat for you, so you can read that later. Good stuff. If there's any other questions or comments in our last couple minutes, again, feel free to use the chat. I see the happy holidays in the chat message. Appreciate that. And happy holidays to everyone as well. Yeah, the next time, in fact, that this group will get together for Cute for Teams will be in 2025. So I will update the aka.ms/Cute for Teams with the next date. But yeah, it'll be somewhere in the mid-January. So we'll all be 1 year older next time we see each other. It's interesting. All right, good stuff. All right, well, it was good to see you guys again. And again, happy holidays. And we'll see each other and talk more teams in 2025. All right, take care.